Hello and welcome everybody, I am Trilarian and today I'm going to show you how to create armatures for your miniatures. First of all, we have to decide what scale we want to do our armature in, and for reasons of visibility I'm going to start with an 80mm armature, but of course you could just do smaller ones or bigger ones. To start with, you have to have a few tools. First of all, of course, you will need some wire. Prefer armature wire or flower wire in aluminum. Um, for two reasons: you can bend that material easily, and it doesn't break when you bend it. So I prepared a strip here that I'm going to use. Second, you will need some kind of pliers. Ideally, you'll have pliers with round tips. Pliers like these don't hurt the material too much. Then, of course, you will need another set of pliers that you can clip the wire with. Also, some kind of measurement scale always helps. And in the end, you will want to mount your armature on some base. In this case, I use cork. To start with, you can take diagrams of skeletons printed out in the correct scale, and I will show you in a later video how to do that in Photoshop. So as you can see, the 72mm scale is printed out as 8 centimeters or 80mm from the top of the head to the heel, and that sort of translates to, this is actually 75 to the eyes, 75mm. So you can either take a diagram like this, or and this is what I prefer these days, you can take anatomy models. That's a resin cast that I took a picture of and then scaled the same way. You can see this is also 80mm from the top of the head to the heel. And there's a couple of different ways to start your armature. In this video I'm going to show you the method that I am currently using and preferring. I will show you two others in the next video. So this is our end product before you actually reposition and pose according to what you want to achieve in the miniature. So how do we get from here to this? First of all, take a wire that is long enough, and some would measure the middle. Mine is about 26 long, so I'll just take 13. And this is the first step. Ideally you use your pliers so you can get a good bend. And this is what it should look like This area up here will be our head later on. So make sure this is parallel. Set. This up here will be our head, and the first thing we do is we make sure that this area is somewhat centered, because it will be the spine of the miniature. And what I do is I put the top of the wire up here, about halfway to the forehead, because we will bend that later in shape to have our base for the head. So the next thing I do is we want to create the legs and the hips, and for that I will position my pliers like that and create two bends like that, and I took about the hip level, the hip bone level, as you can see, as reference for that. Then on both sides, roughly at the hip bone level, you will want to bend the legs. So you can see, if you were making a dot on the hip bone, it is about this length from the center. Of course, we want to do the same on the other side, and I'll just use sort of like eye measurement to do that. Of course, you can do this by measuring from the printout as well. Okay, small correction. Okay, from here, what I'm usually doing is I take some wire that is even thinner, and what I do is I start here, and I give this a U shape, so I can attach it here and press everything together. And I will just make sure that this area isn't going to be moving afterwards. Okay, so I can clip that off here. I will want some room for attaching the hands, but it will make sense when I show you. Alright. So now we have the spine and the legs ready. Or actually, what we have ready is the hip bone, the hip area and the spine. What we want to do next is we need to attach the arms, and for that I'm taking the spine area just below or on the level of the collarbone, and what I do is I will bend in with the pliers a shape like this. I'll show you without the pliers in a second, then it gets clearer. Just a U shape like this, and that is where my arms will go. So didn't really prepare that, so give me a second. We'll take a second piece of wire. Make sure you have about twice the length of the arms and the length of your of the collarbone area. Clip it off. And find your middle. And now see why we have this U shape, so it perfectly fits in here. And what we can do now is attach this wire with the thinner wire. Always try to minimize the space you're actually using there, because if you do this too thick, you will have problems with very slim and filigree sculptures. Alright, we can fix the rest down here. Just clip off what you don't need. Also down here I have some excess that I want to get rid of. And you can still readjust the middle of the arms like this. Okay. So moving on from here, adjust the armature again so that you have the horizontal wire just above the collarbone, and then again up here I will just at the level of the ball joint. You can't really see that. So at the level of the ball joint I will with my pliers give it a twist. And also here I will mark it, and then with the pliers fold down the arm. readjust a bit, and for the next step I'm actually taking this view, the back view, so at the level of the elbow, I will bend in the shape of the elbow as well. Don't worry if this is moving too much at the moment. We will give it a drop of super glue and then it will keep still. For the sake of being symmetrical, I will just use this arm as well for the opposite arm. And you see here I made a small mistake. Always try to have your wire without bends, so you don't confuse the actual bend that you do with some random imperfection. Okay, small correction. Check again that everything works. Then take some super glue. And just add a drop here. And you can also glue this together for some extra stability. Need to wait a bit for it to dry. You can also use activator spray, of course, but I didn't prepare that. And two more things that we need to do. Of course, we need to make sure we get the knees. So at the level of the knees, I will grab it with my pincers and make this bend. And measuring like this, I can do the second bend as well. And the more your experience rises with the number of armatures you create, the more this will be. You'll get the feel for how long does an arm have to be, and so on. And the last step, or well, one of the last steps that we're going to do is we're gonna create a base for our head. And what I do is I will just bend this in shape and move it back a bit. Like that. And then actually taking a side view of the diagrams. We need to acknowledge that the spine isn't just a line, but it's got this double S shape that we need to create. You see my armature right now, it's just the straight line, but we actually need this double S shape. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create this small bend here in the hip, and then the big arch in the back, the upper area, the spine where the rib cage attaches. Like that, and the head, I will move it a bit back like this as well, because there's the second S, and we want the bulge back here to go back and create the back of the head as well. So one more measure we have to do is down to the heels, and they usually make this section a bit longer, and I just mark the length here and here, just in case I need to readjust again. And at this point you would sort of decide what's the pose gonna be. Like, is she or he, and in this case it's a she, of course. What is she going to do? Is she just gonna stand there, or is she going to take a step? We'll make her do a step forward in a sort of defensive position. I'm sorry, a step backward in a defensive position. Just for illustration purpose, I will speed that up a bit. Now our cork comes into play, and you will clip off this area. Don't make it too short. I'm making it a bit shorter than necessary, so I can quickly put it into the cork. Just use your pliers again. Make sure you decide on the stance of the miniature. Don't just put them in, like this on the same line, but we said it's gonna be a defensive step backwards, so one of the legs needs to go further to the front. Carefully push it in, and you will want to push one, then push the other, because otherwise you're going to ruin the armature and bend it out of shape. Okay, so this is the stand she's going to take, and then of course you can decide on the hands. And one thing you will want to take note of is you have these two planes or two lines here, the shoulder belt and the hip area, the hip belt, and they're of course connected with the spine, and they always sort of look into opposite direction usually. Like here in this miniature we have this shoulder facing downwards a bit. Then what you will want to do is get this angle as well, you know, like this. If this shoulder was looking the other way, pointing the other way, then we would also have the hip area adjust accordingly. Okay, and like I said, here you can just decide on your pose and your position. Here I made an individual standing on a slope. You can also do that by adding different angles to your base, and he's resting one foot on the slope, and most of his weight rests on this foot, and then he also is holding something like a spear. Like this. And yeah, you just need to adjust your armature to this point accordingly. In the next video I will show you how to put in the first elements of your sculpture, which is the hip area and the chest area, in order for you to be able to sculpt on that with the Super Sculpey. You need a base like that you can glue the Super Sculpey on, but more in the next video. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments, and I'll try to answer them quickly. Also, make sure you check out my Twitch channel. I am live every day, every weekday at least, except Friday, and you can ask me questions there. I will put the link in the description. Also, you will find links to the chart I'm using, and I can also give a link to this if it's needed. For now, thanks for watching, and see you next time.